Welcome back for another day in the 30 Days of Ableton Effects series. I'm dkode and this is Decoded Music Production, and today we'll be looking at Ableton's Compressor plugin. Later on in the series we'll be looking at the glue compressor, but for today we'll just be looking at the basic compressor. The Ableton compressor is used to flatten peaks of audio in your track to give an overall higher average volume. I know that sounds a little bit confusing. The easiest way of thinking of a compressor to me, and I saw somebody else use this analogy on Reddit, is imagine that a compressor acts like your angry mother when you're playing your music too loudly. The threshold of a compressor is the volume at which your mother reacts to the loud music and yells at you to turn it down, hence triggering the compression. Ratio is how much you turn down the volume once your mother is triggered and angry. Attack is how quickly you turn down the volume. And the release is how long you wait after your mother is yelled before you turn the volume back up. That's probably the easiest way to think of compression and its main functions. The compressor in Ableton is broken up into three main areas. So let's go ahead and take a look and dive right in. First, let's take a look at an example of, I just have a simple operator here with two voices, and then I have Ableton's compressor. Right now, the compressor is essentially not on because the volume level of the incoming signal from the operator is not above this threshold here. This is a quick example of how the compression engages. If we turn this all the way down so that the threshold is -35, you'll see that the gain reduction kicks in and volume is actually reduced as a result. So let's go ahead and dive into all these different views and functions that it has. The threshold shows when the compression engages in decibels right here. So right now it's set to -12 decibels, so any signal above that point will trigger the compressor and turn it on. The knobs on the left configure this process and control how triggering occurs and is released in turn. The ratio determines the amount of compression to apply. 2:1 means the output signal is reduced by half. And this is a ratio of reduction. So 1:1 means that no reduction would occur. The same audio signal that comes in would be the audio signal that's coming out. Ratio of 2:1 is default. Attack determines how quickly the compression clamps down on the audio signal. You have to be careful with the attack knob I've found and others have recommended. Setting too low of an attack on a compressor will actually remove the transients from your incoming sound. So if you have a drum sound or an audio signal that has a distinct transient, setting a low attack will essentially cut that transient off. So you want to make sure that you have a safe attack, or the audio signal doesn't have a transient that you don't want removed. The release determines how quickly the clamping ends and the compression ends. Often a faster release is desired. You want the volume to return to normal as quickly as possible. So this is more of a common configuration here. Visualization here in the middle, there's actually multiple visualizations available. We'll take a look at the bar view here first. This first one represents the threshold, and you can see the incoming audio signal. Moving this up or down affects the threshold level. The GR represents gain reduction and shows, you can visualize how much gain reduction is being applied. For instance, here just a little bit. If we move this down even further, more gain reduction will be applied. And the out setting is to increase the output volume. This is needed sometimes because the compression will reduce dynamic range and make the audio quieter as a result. So what you want to do is, if you're compressing it too much, you can actually hear the signal get lighter. Maybe not in this instance if the output is, there you go. So what you can do is you can actually, that's going to clip right there, but you want to re-raise the volume after the compression is done. So this squashes the peak and then this raises the overall volume again. The makeup on-off switch here, this will automatically adjust the out setting if the ratio and threshold are modified. You can kind of hear it there a little bit. These are other visualizations. This is commonly called I think the knee view, but you can see here by dragging this around, moving up and down determines the ratio of compression. And then moving it to the left lowers the threshold. So left and right is threshold, and then up and down is ratio. The sharper the knee, the harder it is for the compression to engage. You can see there it has a hard time getting past the knee. If we flatten that out, we're reducing the ratio. I think that's the correct way to look at it there. The last one is a useful kind of chart, so you can, or a scrolling visualization. You can see here if we turn down the threshold, which is the blue line here, and what it represents. Anything above any signal here, above the blue line, triggers compression. This yellow line represents gain reduction and shows where gain reduction is being applied. And then the out setting is for the output signal. You can see if we move the threshold down, you can see how the gain reduction increases even more. So those are a couple different visualizations that are available in the compressor here. These visualizations here, the names for them are collapsed, transfer, and activity, I believe is the correct terminology for those. This knee is the same knee that you would have here. Controls the sharpness of the knee. And then the look setting right here controls how far ahead in milliseconds is analyzed so the attack is applied correctly. And the envelope here can either be set to lin or log for linear or logarithmic, and determines if the compression is applied logarithmically, which can smooth the effect out. This is what the summary was in the manual. So I'm not entirely sure what the difference between those two are. And then the modes on the right here allow you to apply different ways of compression is acting. Peak acts as an aggressive compression. This first one, that's the default, not allowing any signal above the threshold after a short amount of time. RMS is a bit less aggressive. Expand mode is a ratio of less than 1 is allowed. The compressor now acts as an upward compressor that increases gain when it exceeds the threshold. This seems to be similar to parallel compression, or when you send a signal to ascend for compression, or multiple signals to ascend. So this seems to, let's see how that looks. So once it passes a threshold, it's going to increase the volume. You can see there the blue bar. But as I stated, the peak is the default. And then over here is the dry wet knob, which mixes the effect in with the unaffected audio signal. In addition to showing the compressor, I also have an example of doing sidechain compression. So normally, by default, the compressor will get its input signal from whatever's feeding it input to trigger the compression. So you can see that this here under the threshold is actually coming from this operator over on the left. But what you can do with sidechain is if you click the little arrow here to flip it out and click sidechain, audio input from, and I have a kick here on another track. We'll play that. You'll see now that I'm not playing the operator, but this threshold is going up, down, and gain is actually being applied without even playing on the compressor. You can really hear this, how this affects this if you turn the threshold way down and then just play operator. It's almost like a thumping. So that's an example of some extreme sidechain compression, but it allows you to see how sidechain compression works. And essentially what you're doing is whenever the kick hits or another audio source, you're ducking the operator in this instance or whatever your signal is, and getting it out of the way for the other signal that's you're using the sidechain off of. And then from my understanding, this EQ here allows you to apply EQ, I believe, to the sidechain, if I recall correctly, basically where the frequency is of this EQ that you're applying. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this and you want to keep in touch with the other videos that I'll be posting, just go ahead and subscribe, and please leave any comments for anything I can improve upon. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.